just going to learn how to find best fit lines from summary statistics. The first thing we need to know is what our equation of the line is. Traditionally, you might be familiar with the line y equals mx plus b. In stats, it's the same idea, just different notations. The line that the equation we'll use is the predicted y is equal to b sub 0, which that's the same as this b right here, plus b sub 1 times x. So what they do differently is they switch the order, and instead of m, they use b sub 1. And there's a silly or a small little footnote explaining why that is, and really the reason they make it b sub 1 is because they don't want to use m, because then they'll have to use other letters eventually, and so it's better just to use subsets. Okay, so this is our predicted y value. This is our y-intercept, and b sub 1, again, is our slope. Okay? So when you have these, when I have summary statistics, there's ways that you find these two data pieces. And so the y-intercept, which is b sub 0, is equal to the equation the mean of y minus b sub 1 times the mean of x. Okay? So you have to have the means and the slope to find the y-intercept. The slope equation, which is b sub 1, is equal to the correlation times the standard deviation of y over the standard deviation of x. So when you do these, you have to have some data. You have to have the mean and standard deviation and the correlation. So those are the different things you're going to need. So there's 5 pieces of information you need. Okay? So let's look at an example. So data was taken at a random sample of 15 high school students on their foot length in centimeters and height in centimeters. The mean and standard deviation for the foot length are 24.76, and the standard deviation is 2.71. So I'm going to need those information. The mean and standard deviation for the heights are the y is 171, and then 10.69, and the correlation is here. Okay, so if I look back at my different equations, if you notice, my y equation has a b1. So I can't do my y-intercept first. You have to start at b1 first. And so maybe that will be helpful, saying that, oh, it's b1, so that's my first step. Okay? So I'm going to write that equation here. B sub 1 equals r times sy over sx. And I'm just writing these on my paper so I don't have to keep going back and forth. Okay, so now I have all my formulas on here. I'm going to plug this in. My correlation is 0.697 times my standard deviation of y, which is 10.69. So what's going to happen is I plug these in, and my standard deviation is 2.71. I type it in the calculator, and I get a 2.75. So that tells me my b sub 1. Now, for the b sub 1, I'm going to take that, excuse me, and I'm going to plug it in right here. So now I do my mean. My mean for y's is 171.43 minus my b sub 1, 2.75, times my mean of the x's, 24.76. So I plug those in, 171.43 minus 2.75 times 24.76, and I get 103.34. Okay, so now I have my two answers. I have my slope, and I have my y-intercept. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my predicted value, my predicted equation. So y hat, which is the predicted y, equals 103.34 plus 2.75x, where y hat is your predicted height and x is the foot measurement. Okay? All right, and so if you wanted to, we could also write it so you don't have to make the key. The predicted height equals 103.34 plus 275 foot length. Okay, and if you do that, then you don't have to write a key. Now the next question is, you need to be able to state the slope in context. My slope is b sub 1, which is 2.75, which means 2.75 is over 1. And so there's a couple ways you could do it. You can keep it like this, over 1, or you can change it to 275 over 100. I think for this one, because you're talking about centimeters, it doesn't make sense to talk about it in terms of 275 centimeters per 100. I think it makes sense to talk about this, 2.75. And if you remember, when you have slope, it's the y over x. So this is saying that the height will increase by 2.75 centimeters for every 1 centimeter increase in foot length on average. This is probably the biggest thing right here, including this on average. If you do not include the on average, that means it's set in stone and it's exact, but because things change, that's why it's on average. So somewhere when you describe your slope, you have to say something that it changes this much on average. But again, remember, slope is the change in y, which for us was our change in x. So that's why I said the height will increase by 2.75, which I got from here, for every 1 centimeter in foot, which was here, on average. And that's how you describe slope. If you have questions, make sure you leave a comment or email them to me, or you can ask in class.